We are live from the Exile Turbo channel. I'm Cristiano Galvao with another great interview. Today, I'm bringing a guy from the United States. He is MVP, MCT, CPA, and very, very active in the financial modeling and accounting communities. He is Jeff Lenning MVP, bringing here today virtually to my side. He's Jeff Lenning. Hey, Jeff, how
Thank
are you
you,
doing?
Cristiano. Thank you, man, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm very happy to have you here. For those who are watching this video, this kind of video in my channel for the first time, we will start with an interview. We are always very curious to know about the professional behind the tools, the guys that we used to see with lots of tutorials and Excel tips and tricks, but not always we have the chance to talk in a chat way like we are going to do here now. But then later, after the interview, we will have the Excel session. So don't worry, stay here up to the end. For those who are watching the recorded video, because this will be available on YouTube, don't skip the video because you always have the chance to learn from the other person that we bring here. So it's a pleasure to have you here, Jeff. You are MVP, you are accountant, but let's start from the beginning with the very classic question. We have to do this one for everyone who comes, but then we start changing the questions more specific about you. The first thing that I would like to know is how did you start your career in Excel? Professionally or even as a user at home or education, how it was your first contact with Excel?
Yeah, so what I'm a nerd. I've always been a nerd. I've always loved computers and techie stuff. And so even back like in junior high school, middle school, I would have an after school computer programming class, and I would go in and we'd learn how to program in BASIC on TRS 80s and VIC 20s, and I'm dating my age, and that's fine. But very early on, I was fascinated by computers, and we took this family vacation, and our family friends had this Mac. And I was just mesmerized by this Macintosh computer. I just loved it. It was around 84, 85, something like that. And then my dad is a CPA. And so he got this spreadsheet program for the Mac. And I just remember I was just mesmerized by this grid and typing in values, writing formulas, having changes. So I just started using it. In high school, I made spreadsheets to do, stock trading calculations and all this stuff. My teachers wanted copies of it and all this stuff. And so I just have been using it ever since then as just part of my everyday existence. So yeah, that's kind of the origin story of that.
So your father was CPA, right?
Yeah. So
and you got the influence, start seeing him to use Excel, and you start to do something in the age of the high school, right?
That's right. Yeah, in high school, and and he's still a CPA. He does tax, and this stuff. So I grew up working in his office, and so just been exposed to that industry basically my whole life. So yeah, that's kind of the origin.
Cool. And you mentioned BASIC. It's very cool. What kind of computer we are talking about? You told Mac, but you must have had the other kinds of computer. What kind of computer? Are we talking about the green screen monitors or not? You are young.
Yeah.
You are young.
That's right. I mean, after school in junior high, it was the Commodore VIC 20. It didn't even have a hard drive, so you'd have to recode everything every time you booted it up until we got the tape drive. So this is dating myself, but and then the TRS 80, with the green screen, and so that was. And I remember sitting in that class thinking, oh my gosh, we can have computers do anything. Like, they're so amazing. And so to see them all just kind of what we can do with them today is just amazing. So yeah, it's fun.
Cool, cool. People are start writing here the hello. We have Nadia Sheikh saying hello. We have Lígia Galvão, good afternoon. Agnaldo, hi everyone. And Marcelo, amazing interview right in the beginning. So this is a very cool chat, as you can see. And the others will come and also put the comments. For those who are watching now, type the comments, and also you can make questions as well. We will have the demonstration in a couple of minutes. But let's talk about the place. You are talking from the United States, right in the middle of the country, right?
Yep. So we live in
Sioux Falls.
Yeah, Sioux Falls. It's right in the middle of the country. So yeah, more elbow room here than we used to live in on the West Coast. And yeah, there we go. And so we moved here, I don't know, 5 years ago or so.
Here on the screen is Rio de Janeiro. Let me put here your place, Sioux Falls here. And then we make the famous trip virtually to the middle of the United States here. Cool, very cool. Let me zoom out so they will have the notion here, right in the middle. Very cool, very cool. But let's talk more about the origin. So you were talking about your first contact with Excel, but then you got the influence or the inspiration from your father, and you followed the same steps of accounting, right? I can see in your resume the bachelor in accounting.
Yeah, so then in school, in college, I got an accounting degree, and then started to work in a big public accounting firm and do audits and taxes. And then I got the CPA certificate, the CPA license, and I'm still a CPA, but what is nice is I'm just a full-time Excel trainer. I don't do any tax returns, audits, reviews, and it's a lot better. So I'm very happy with my current role here of helping people use Excel better and to help them get their work done faster.
So you start working before you finish the university, right? After the high school, you started working, and then you started to give another steps.
Yeah,
cool, so very cool. Let me write here the Excel universe, and now you don't make tax anymore. You are exclusively living from Excel. This is amazing. Just
like you.
Put here.
That's right.
Yes. I'm full-time Excel too. Let me put here the screen again. So everyone, let me remove my logo here. This is the Excel University. You can learn more about the job that Jeff Lenning is doing. Let me open here the courses. Very interesting, this name, Excel University, and the way that you provide the CPA credits. How did you figure out the name Excel University? This is something that I like to ask, because every logo or business has a story. How did you came up with the idea of Excel University?
Yeah, so I had a couple of names that I was thinking about, but I don't know if you've heard of this financial guy named Dave Ramsey. Are you familiar with Dave Ramsey?
I heard about. Okay.
So I'm a big fan of him and his work, and he had this thing called Financial Peace University. And it's the idea where you're learning how to control your finances, get out of debt, and really it's learning how to manage your finances. And I'm like, Financial Peace University, that sounds so cool. What about Exile University? And then I looked at the domain names, and exceluniversity.com was taken, but I quickly registered Exile, dash university.com to start. And then I ultimately was able to buy exceluniversity.com. And so anyway, that's kind of the reason why I picked that name. And it's perfect because I'm really teaching people how to use Excel. And so I've set up everything kind of like a little university where I have 4 undergraduate courses, 2 master's courses, and you kind of go through in order. So I'm playing a lot off the university terms. But yeah, that's kind of how that started.
Yeah, very cool, amazing, and it's very cool to see how the name, the brand is extremely connected to your style, inspired in academic world. This is amazing. People can see also here the collection of blogs, the sequence, the series, Dynamic Arrays 1, Dynamic Arrays 2, Dynamic Arrays 3. You have lots of videos about the VLOOKUP hacks as well, I know, and people can find also the videos here on the YouTube channel, which is very, very cool. Make sure to click on the videos, because at YouTube at home not always show all the content, so make sure when visiting you click on videos to see everything. And I like the VLOOKUP hacks a lot, but tell us about the XLOOKUP. How is the VLOOKUP now with the XLOOKUP? Because now the thing is becoming different, right?
Yeah. So with VLOOKUP, with the hacks, what's interesting is some of the VLOOKUP hacks techniques still apply, but many of them are no longer needed for those people who have XLOOKUP, because XLOOKUP is like a more modern, updated sort of version of VLOOKUP, really designed to ultimately replace VLOOKUP. And so it doesn't have some of the limitations that we are used to with VLOOKUP. But not many people have it. It's being slowly rolled out over time. So some of those VLOOKUP hacks are still applicable, just depending on the version of Excel you have. But XLOOKUP, boy, that's one of my top 5 favorite functions now. It's bumped VLOOKUP out of my top 5, and XLOOKUP's in my top 5 now. So yeah, what a great function. Great updates. Oh, by the way,
cool.
Sorry, I was just going to say, if someone's watching and they aren't familiar with XLOOKUP, there's a free on-demand webinar that I did about XLOOKUP that they can feel free to check out. That's available too. So give some more information about it.
Is it possible to find on the YouTube or through the website? Which way is the best to find the webinar?
Yeah, I just saw it when you were on the blog.
The blog here.
Yeah, there it is, right there. XLOOKUP webinar.
Here, right in my face. Yeah, I clicked on blog, and I was navigating here. So at the third page, 1, 2, 3, you will find here right on the top. If you, for the audience, people who are watching the video, if you are watching recently, you will find right on the 3rd page. But if you are watching later and later, I'm sure that this will be right to the front, because he's always publishing new content almost every week. I can see. Cool, very cool. And you have the MVP award you got on this year, right? I can see here on the Microsoft page. Tell us about this story. How it was the path to the, because you have a long journey and now you are MVP. How was to get the award, and what is changing after the prize?
Yeah. Well, thank you. That was a very long journey. But I will say that getting the award for me wasn't as much about what's going to change in terms of, marketing or getting new business. For me, it was really just a validation, like feeling accepted. And it was just like, Jeff, you're doing a good thing. Keep doing what you're doing. And it really just felt, like I said, just like a validation and an acceptance. And so to be in the same group as my Exile heroes that I've looked up to for so many years is really, it's really incredible. So yeah, I'm blown away by it. But I love
Congratulations.
thank you. I like having the communication with the development team, and they have lots of events and things, and so it's just great. It's just great.
Cool, very cool, very cool. And you are participating of events too. I remember of one very recent the Exile Virtually Global, and so now I like the way that you talk. You are in the same group of the heroes that you admired for a long time. I like this approach. It's very, very beautiful to see this. Cool, cool. So I have lots of questions about the journey, and sometimes I alternate, go back and forth with the demonstrations. I have more questions to give to you, but you have for the demonstration something about Sumifs and tables, right?
Yeah, so you want to take a look at that now?
Let's see, and then I come with more questions. And let me put here the Excel here. Let me remove the Excel Turbo, and okay. Excel University, I see here.
Yeah, I was going to say, if anyone's watching and they would like to download the Excel file, do you want to show where that is? exceluniversity.com/mapping table. Yeah, there we go. So feel free. And when you get there, then that page should look like this. And then you can just click on this Excel file. And then there's also some links to some relevant articles here. And if you want to subscribe to the blog, you can do that here. But anyway, the thing I wanted to talk about today was this idea of mapping tables. And I wrote about this a long time ago, and it's in one of my first books. It's actually Exile University Volume 2 book. So it's a technique that I've loved for many years. But the reason why I want to talk about it today was because in some of my coaching sessions that I do, this has come up time and time again. Like, Jeff, I'm stuck. How do I solve this? Mapping table. Jeff, hey, I'm stuck here. We need a mapping table over here too and over here too. So it's like once we recognize this technique, and there's many different ways to implement a mapping table, but once we recognize it, then there's a lot of ways we can apply it. So what I thought I would do is show the individual Excel skills that we need to do a mapping table, and then really take a look at some applications so we can see the different ways that we can actually apply it. So the two things that we need to implement it this way is tables and Sumifs. And there are, of course, this is Excel. So of course, there are many other ways to implement this idea of a mapping table. So we're just going to look at one way, which uses tables and Sumifs. So first, I want to talk about these skills, and then we'll take a look at this whole application process. So here, first of all, let's take a look at tables. Tables have been around for a while, so there's a good chance that you're already familiar with tables. But if not, I do want to just make sure that that we're cool. And the idea with tables is it solves a really big problem with historical Excel, which is this. Let's say we have a range, and then we do something with the range, and in this case, we might just add it up, right? And then we hit enter, and we save and we close, and we move on with our life, and life is good until next period, right? Because next period, we still have our sum, 328, but then we want to go and update our amounts. We want to add some new transactions. So maybe we type them, maybe we paste them, it doesn't matter. But when we type or paste them under the range, the value doesn't change. 328, 328, right? 328, 328. So what's happening is Excel is not automatically rewriting our formula to include these new values. And that's a problem that has plagued Excel users for a really long time. The good news is that this was solved a while ago. And rather than store our data in an ordinary range, we want to store it in a table. The way that we do that is we select any cell within the range and insert table. Excel is going to give us the create table dialog. We just click OK. And now we have this table. And the beautiful thing about tables is that they auto expand. Tables auto expand when we type or paste new values under them. So in the case of a sum function, okay, and we can sum this range, but before I do, I want to make a quick note. Tables have names, and so if we go to the Tables Design tab, we can see that there's a table name, Table 5. It might be small on the screen, I don't know, but anyway, this table name here says Table 5. So what we want to do is use the table's name rather than our A1 style range reference. So instead of saying sum of, B12 through B, 15, instead of that, we want to use the table's name. So again, we type in the table's name and hit enter. And just like before, we get 328. We save the workbook, close, move on with our life. Life is good, even next period. Next period, we're going to type or paste some new values immediately under the range. And this time when we do it, yes. Okay, tables auto expand. So this is the first ingredient of our technique, tables. We want to store data in tables. Why? Because tables auto expand. There's other benefits of using tables, but to me, that's the most important reason. Is because now we don't have to have errors in our workbook. We don't have to rewrite or update formulas when we type or paste new values under them, okay? So that's tables. It's our first ingredient. So far, so good? All right, let's go to the next ingredient. Cool. The next ingredient that we're going to need is the Sumifs function. Now, the Sumifs function is not to be confused with SumIf, which we've had for a long time. This is Sumifs, and the difference is SumIf can handle one and only one condition. Sumifs can handle one or more conditions. Since Sumifs can handle one or more, I just use that always instead of SumIf. I don't use SumIf anymore. And the reason is because the order of the arguments are in the reverse order, so it's hard to switch back and forth. Plus, later it's easy to update the formula if I add an additional condition. So Sumifs is a multiple condition summing function. So it's like sum because it adds things up, right? The summing function, but it's conditional. That means it's only going to include certain rows. So here's how that looks. Let's say I want to calculate something like this, where I'm tracking my calories or any other kind of report that you can think of, and I have this data table, okay? Now, what I want to do is equal Sumifs. And the first argument to the Sumifs function is called the sum range. That's the column of numbers we want to add. So what do we want to add? We want to add up this calories column. And let me hit comma. And by the way, what is all of this? This is what's called a structured table reference. It's a techie term. It just means what's the naming system or naming convention that we use to reference areas within a table. So in the first exercise, we saw how to reference an entire table just by using the table's name. Now we can see that there's a way to reference individual columns within a table. And the way that we do that is by using the table's name followed by the column name enclosed in square brackets. I don't really have to write it. I could type it in if I wanted to. TBL, this is the E2 data table, open a square bracket. I can pick calories and close. That's fine. I can type it in, or I can just browse and select this range. Either way is fine. The point is, I'm using the table's name rather than an A1 style range reference. So I want to add up the calories column, but I don't want to include all of those rows in this first cell. I only want to include some of the rows. I only want to include those rows where, And now the remaining arguments come in pairs of arguments. So the first function argument is the column of numbers to add, comma, and then the remaining arguments come in pairs. Each pair defines a single condition. I only want to include those rows where this category column, comma, is equal to this category value. Close function. Before I hit enter, let's review. I'm asking the Sumifs function, good, to add up the calories column, good, comma, only include those rows where the category values, comma, are equal to my category. I think this looks good, enter. And I get 1545. And if I just select these, I can confirm 1545. That's good. Now what I can do is I can just copy that and paste and paste. And now this is how we can use the Sumifs function to compute a conditional sum, all right? So these are the two ingredients we're going to need. Let me go ahead and write this formula one more time. Equals Sumifs. I want to add up the calories, comma, I only want to include those rows where category, comma, is equal to our category. Close function, enter. And then I can just copy and paste and paste. Now, the nice thing about this is next tomorrow or later today, let's say I have some new items. I can type or paste in some new items into the table. And since the table auto expands, it's going to automatically flow into my report. So let's say I have another snack. I love snacks. Let's say I eat a brownie, okay? This brownie is in the snacks category, and it's like 300 calories. It's amazing. So I hit enter, and now it's done. And so this new row automatically is included in the table because tables auto expand. And this snacks row automatically flows into this Sumifs function because we use these structured table references, and we got it. Okay, so that's the idea of tables and Sumifs. Now, I can show the application unless you want to kind of take a break and do some questions, but now we'll see how to apply these to do our mapping tables.
I have some hello here to show you, and I'm writing down the tips so everyone can practice with more attention. I got 3 tips from this beginning of the demonstration. One is tables auto expand, one of them, and the other, observe the notation of table references, because sometimes we are referring to all the table and sometimes to the column, and there is a little difference that they have to practice to observe more and learn more. And then the Sumifs criteria come in pairs, ranges and conditions.
Yep,
so
perfect.
Everyone, I will put on the comments too, and this will be good to give them reference to the study. And then we have some comments here. We have Celia Alves saying, hello, tables is a fundamental concept to learning Excel. She's confirming what you said. We have a friend here too. Hey, Cristiano and Celia. It's Christian Angel from Romania. And let's go. Cool, very cool. Let me put back the screen. And I'm going to write down the tips in the comments and in the chat, so everyone will have that enforcement to study. And now feel free to give the other exercise. It's very cool to everyone.
Perfect. Okay. So now that we have those 2 fundamental Excel skills down, it's time to apply this to this idea of a mapping table. So the idea of the mapping table is this. Anytime that we have a difference in the labels from one data source to the report or other data source. So for example, here I need to build a report that includes the rep name. But in the transactions that I download from my system, I have the rep ID. So immediately I see that there is a difference in the labels. Okay, and so Excel users get stuck when they try to go directly from this report to this data, right? And so what we need is something in the middle. And that thing in the middle is a mapping table. Sometimes these are called lookup tables, transformation tables. There's different names, but to me, I like to think of this as a mapping table because it really maps the label from one system, one report, one export to another. And this happens often, right? Let's say we're downloading a banking activity and we get this bank activity codes and we need to map this into the correct vendor names. Or we download something from Expensify and we need to translate those labels into GL account codes. Or we download something from our budget and it needs to be translated into QuickBooks categories. And you get the idea. There's two different systems, two different labels. So anytime we have one label that is different from another, we can use this intermediate bridge or this little mapping table. So all we're going to need to do is use our two techniques. First is set this mapping table up in a table so that it auto expands. And then we're just going to go and retrieve the values from the data table. Now, let me go back over here for a second. We're going to look at three different applications. The first one is just a one-to-one relationship. We're also going to look at a many-to-one relationship and multiple reports. So the good news is we can apply the same technique in these different kinds of scenarios. So in this case, it's just a one-to-one relationship. And there's this ID and rep and then the amount. So again, this is Excel, many different ways to accomplish this, but the same technique or these same ingredients can be applied many different ways. And so the first one is, let's use Sumifs to get the data from the data table into the map. So again, we're going to use Sumifs. And you remember our arguments? You got this, right? The first one is the sum range. That's the number of, or the column of numbers to add. So in this case, I want to add up the data table's amount column, and I'm just typing it in, but I could also flip over to the data sheet and select it. That would be fine. So I want to add up the data table's amount column, but I only want to include certain rows. I only want to include those rows where TBL E3 data rep ID column, comma, is equal to R rep ID. Close the function and enter. Now, this brings us to a couple of things. First of all, it brings us to another special property of tables, which is that formulas are automatically filled down. So this is going to be a calculated column. Excel is going to monitor this and continue to fill it down even if we type or paste in new reps. So let's say our data transactions have many transactions for any given rep. Now they're consolidated on one line through this Sumifs function. Now that we've got the numbers from the data source into the map, now we just need to get it from the map into the reports. And this could be any variety of reports. It could be a pivot table. Here it could be a formula-based report. In this case, it's a formula-based report, so I'm just going to use Sumifs. Now, remember these arguments? We want to add up the E3 mapping tables amount column, comma, and only include those rows where the E3 mapping tables rep name column, comma, is equal to our rep name. Okay, enter. And now we can just fill this down and we got it. So now this report includes the rep name and the numbers, and they all flow in from the data field. Now this is 132,980. Here, let me go ahead and turn on this total row, 132,980. Let's go over here, turn on this total row, 132,980. So this all flows through. We save, close, move on with our life. Life is good. Let's say we paste in some new transactions with new rep codes. We would update them in the map. And since this is a formula-based report, a traditional formula-based report, we'd update it with a new row here as well. If instead this was a pivot table, we could right-click and refresh. If we have dynamic arrays, that would automatically come in. But that's the basic idea of using our core ingredients, tables and Sumifs, as one way to implement a mapping table. And this is a one-to-one relationship. Now, let's go to the next one, which is a many-to-one relationship. So here, exercise 4, the idea is we export a bunch of transactions and we get one label, okay? And maybe this is coming from QuickBooks or from an accounting system, depending on what you're working in. This could be an inventory system, AR system, fixed asset system, you get the idea. And ultimately, I want to group them in different groups. In this example, the illustration was I export some QuickBooks account labels, but I need to regroup them for the tax return. All right, so this is like more of an accounting example. I need to regroup these according to my tax prep software program. So it's just different labels. Anytime I think about different labels, I'm thinking about a mapping table. So in the middle, I'm not going to try to go directly from the report all the way to the data. In the middle sits this mapping table. Now, the cool thing about this technique is that it supports many-to-one kinds of maps. In other words, there are many account codes here per the books that map to a single tax return line. In other words, there are many of these per books accounts that should be included in this one line here. So it supports this idea of many-to-one. And the good news is we just apply our Sumifs function, right? So equals Sumifs. We want to add up the data tables amount column. So we want to add up the E4 data tables amount column, comma. We only want to include those rows where E4 data tables per books column, comma, is equal to our per books value here. Okay. Close function and enter. And now we've aggregated and summarized all of the transactions, even if there were lots of transactions for any given account. We've pulled them onto the same line based on this. And now we need to get them over to our report here based on this line or this grouping. Again, if we're creating pivot tables, that's fine. Here, I'm just going to use the Sumifs function to create a formula-based report. Equals Sumifs. We want to, and we just go through our routine, we want to add up our mapping tables amount column. We only want to include those rows where the E4 mapping tables per tax return column, comma, is equal to our per tax return value. Close function and enter. And now we can just fill this down and we got it. So this is just an illustration of another way to think about maps, even when there's a one-to-many kind of relationship. Okay, cool. All right,
Yeah,
good.
relationship is something that everybody have to be always paying attention, because it can change everything that when we are not using the correct one. We have a question here from Christian Angel. He says, "Hi Jeff, in a real world, would you use Sumifs rather than Power Query or Power Pivot? What would you recommend?"
Oh yeah, so you know, I was mentioning earlier that there are several ways to implement this idea of a mapping table. And this presentation just uses tables and Sumifs because pretty much everybody has it, and we're just using, you know, Excel. In practice, I would probably be more inclined to use Power Query or Power Pivot, depending on what I was working on. And actually, that's a really, thank you for your question, because in October, and so depending on when you're watching this, if you're watching this before October, I invite you to join me to a free webinar that I'm going to put on where I really expand this discussion of mapping tables. And I show how to implement the idea of a mapping table, not only with classic Excel, which is tables and Sumifs, but also with Power Query, and then also with Power Pivot. And so that'll be free. That'll be coming up in October. If you want to be notified of when that is, just subscribe to the blog, and then I'll send out a broadcast email. So just here, just type in your name and email, click subscribe, and that way you'll be sure to be notified when I do that. And that's where we're going to dig into other ways to implement this idea of a mapping table. So cool. Hey, thanks for the question. That was great.
Great. I'm putting here the website is pretty easy to find, Excel University, even if they forget the website, which is impossible. If they Google or Bing Excel University, is really easy, or if they write Jeff Lenning, is really easy to find the website, which is here, and then they can find the information about the webinar. If before, even better, because they can participate, but if after, they can find some resources too. uh,
Oh,
Good
actually,
question.
yeah, sorry, I was
Good,
going to
good.
say if you're watching this after October, then look at my YouTube channel where I'll have an archive of the upcoming webinar. It's like I'm traveling through time. So if you're watching this after October, go to my YouTube channel where I'll have an archive of that Treasure Maps webinar. So cool. Thanks.
Cool, cool. We have here the YouTube on the page. Let me put here on the screen. Oh, this is one of the articles. I was looking here your profile on Microsoft MVP page. Uh, you told me for you the MVP was a confirmation of the work that you have been doing, but for them this is a very valuable uh, source of information because of the recent activities. People can find some videos and articles. Looking here, not only on the website, but the website. This is one of the examples that we have on the Microsoft page. But well, about the videos, this is the YouTube page. Let's see here. What is here, the webinar, for example. This one is about gamification and Excel training.
Yes.
For a challenge. Cool, cool. What is the thing of the gamification? Sorry for interrupting you.
No problem. So yeah, so in general, I put up videos, about weekly or so, but when I have a webinar, then I'll put the archive on YouTube so you can check it out anytime. Regarding the gamification webinar, what that was different gamification elements that I build into, or that people can build into, but specifically that I have built into my Excel training to make it more fun, more like a game. And so I do a lot of really cool things. I recorded this whole thing with story mode. And Bill, Mr. Excel, was like he has a little cameo in there, so it's awesome. But it's where you go through the story mode and you're using the Excel skills that you learn in the course to help, campus security with their investigation. So it's just a way to keep you engaged and keep you moving through the training. So that's what that one was about.
So this is fun for those who don't like Excel, because you know what, I always in the beginning, I always supposed that everyone loves Excel. Then I start looking at that there is the group of Excel fans, or that maybe fall in love with Excel in the first time, okay? But then there is a group of people who needs Excel. There's nothing wrong in not liking Excel, but they need to work. For those that don't like Excel, is even more important to have a kind of learning that it's fun, not boring, because they can keep more energy according they advance in the challenge. I like this approach a lot. I like this approach. So people can find these some recordings on the YouTube, like this one that I was pointing there, right?
Exactly. Yep. So that mapping table's upcoming webinar will be there as an archive once it's available.
Cool, cool. And I see here as well, let me put this here on the screen. You have some books on Amazon. Very cool. Excel Universe Volume 3, 4, and other resources here. What they can find inside the books? Tell me about the volumes. What is the difference from one volume to the other, and what they can expect from the content?
Yeah, so those books really represent the foundation of the online courses that I have prepared. In other words, I write the book first because it really helps me organize my thoughts, figure out the exact right order that I want to teach topics in, and develop all the exercises. So the book comes first, and then I shoot the lecture videos for the courses. So those are really the foundations. And let me just click on store. Those are the foundations of well, anyways, if you click on store, of the courses that I build. And so volume 1 is it's like your freshman year, right? Course 1, and it's really the fundamentals and the things that you're going to need to build bulletproof recurring use workbooks. And it's not written for true Excel beginners. It's written for people who are comfortable with Excel, ready to kind of go to the next level. Volume 2 is functions, formulas. Volume 3 is pivot tables. And volume 4 is sort of optimizing your own internal use work papers instead of focusing on reports like we did with pivot tables. So that's kind of a quick overview of what's available.
Yeah, very cool. So if for those who don't like to watch videos, I think they are not here because if they don't like videos, they probably are not seen. But you have you have resources for people who prefers to read instead of watching or listening to something. This is so the people don't have an excuse to stop learning.
Always be learning. That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and the reviews are full of stars. This is awesome. Congratulations. Cool,
thank
cool.
you. Thank you.
How's the process of writing a book? Now coming back, this is one of the questions that I wanted to ask on the beginning. So we go back and forth with the
Yeah.
interview because I have been involved in this world of books, but not writing, just as a technical editor. But I heard from my students, hey, Cristiano, you have to write your book. It's time to write your book. But I'm always delaying this kind of project. How is to stop your life, and how much energy this kind of this is a thing of hero. I'm trying to find the word, but how is to donate this time to stop and writing a book? How is the preparation? This is
Yeah.
something that I always get to hear from an author.
Yeah. It is hard. Very hard. It takes a lot of work. And so the way that my personality is I love the creative part. So I love thinking up the exercises. I love thinking of the way that I want to approach each topic, how I want to express the training and kind of how to present each topic. So I love like that part of it, planning out the table of contents, figuring out what order should I, present things in. Well, I can't talk about named ranges till I talk about tables. Well, I can't talk about tables, and so figuring out all of those dependencies and mapping it all out. Like, I love that process. And then I write it, but what happens is there is this grind that is tedious. It's overwhelming. And it's just so, you have to be in such a right frame of mind to go through it. So I'll write my drafts. I'll go back and review it and rewrite it dozens of times. And then I'll send it to a copy editor, and they'll have 200 suggestions, which I have to click through each one and either accept it or reject it or follow up as to why. And then I update that, and then it goes back out to another copy editor. They have another round, and it's just this grind to get it done. And then once it's done, it's nice, but it's a really hard process, but it really creates the foundations for the courses. And I'm glad that I took the time to write the books because there's no overlap between the courses. It's all very progressive and it builds on top of each other. And so I'm very thankful that I went through that process. But yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one.
Cool, very cool. It's really a donation of time and energy to help everyone. But I see that you get the foundation for the courses, so you will base your course in the book by the book. Well, so this is awesome too. Very, very cool. I will put the links here so they will be able to find more resources. We are almost in the end, people. So, guys, if you want to make some questions, uh, get the time to write here before we finish. We have a comment from Christian. He's saying, I admire everybody who can take the challenge to write a book. I have a question about this kind of stop to review and then accept suggestions and change something, because maybe this time that we are living now is the time where Microsoft is changing the things faster than ever, because now we have the 365. We don't wait 2 or 3 years for another version we are using, and then they release, hey, this is new. And I know that now you are MVP, so as an MVP, you have some information that you receive before they release to everyone. But I'm trying to imagine that you just ended one chapter. It's beautiful, shining, bright, with all the bling bling, and then Microsoft gives you, this is another function that will kill your technique. It happens when you are writing something. You have to rewrite everything because you want to release a book that it's fresh. Is this correct?
It's totally correct. And it's, as an instructor or as a writer, blogger, whatever, it's a challenge because things are moving so fast, but I don't care. I love the changes. I love the new improvements. I love the enhancements. This is the most exciting time to be an Excel user because there is so much cool stuff coming out. But yeah, some of the stuff then feels outdated. Like, Jeff, why are you doing a chapter on VLOOKUP? VLOOKUP's dead. Well, VLOOKUP's not dead because only like X percentage of all Excel users have a version of Excel that can even run XLOOKUP. So it's going to be years before VLOOKUP is dead. But anyway, yeah, that's always been a challenge. And then especially you add on the fact that now we have subscription-based. There's also different update channels within the subscription. Then you have perpetual licenses. Then you have Excel on different platforms, web, Mac. And so, hey, here's this feature. I don't have this feature. Well, what version of Excel are you on? I don't know. Well, what kind of computer are you using? I don't know. So it's a challenge, but it's okay. Hey, but before we leave, I do want to do one last exercise, okay, to finish this out. Is that okay? Can we do that now?
Sure. Let me open here the screen again. And
okay.
Let's do it. And now without the banner below, sorry for guys who are watching the video, because on the beginning we had the banner running on the bottom, but then I removed once we see the back and forth on the other tabs, so they can see all the tabs below now. So
cool.
E4 is exercise 4, and E5 is related to the fifth exercise.
Yeah. So this just is the final one, and this is just to kind of finish out this idea here of multiple reports. And the idea is I have one data source, but I need to use that to create two different reports. And so sometimes what we think is, well, I have to paste it in one place to create this report because it has this set of labels. But then since my income statement here has a different set of labels, I really need to paste in another copy somewhere. But we don't have to do that, because when we set up our mapping table, we can just say these are the labels in the data. And then we set up a group of labels for the balance sheet for one of the reports. And then these are the labels for the other report. And so we would just use Sumifs to bring the values into the map. So equal Sumifs. We want to add up the E5 data table's amount column and only include those rows where the account name, comma, is equal to our account name, close function, enter. Now we've pulled the transactions from the export into the map. And now we can just pick the label column depending on which report we're working on. So for example, if we're using this balance sheet, it's going to be equal Sumifs. We want to add up the mapping tables amount column. We only want to include those rows where the B sheet labels, comma, are equal to my balance sheet labels here. Then I can copy this, paste, paste, and paste. Let's go ahead and flip the sign here. I'm just going to put in a leading dash, and let's paste and paste. And now I want to use that same data source, but for a different report that has a different set of labels. No worries. Equals Sumifs. I want to go back to the map. I want to add up the amount column, but I only want to include those rows where P&L labels, comma, are equal to my P&L label, close function, enter, and paste and paste. If we need to, we can just flip the sign, and we got it. 9387, 9387, 266313, 266313. And I think we look good. So that's kind of my final example that kind of closes out this. It's that the same map can drive multiple reports. We just set up a new column for each.
Cool, very cool, very good. Thank you very much. We have a question before we finish. This is more about concept, and I like this kind of question to finish a conversation because it makes us to think more about how we use the tools. This is from Christian, and he's asking for me or to you. What's your view on Excel Power users that start using Power BI, and how would you use both in the same solution? So it's comparing. He's comparing the Power BI usage with Excel. Well, good one. You take, Jeff.
Cool. Okay. So here's kind of the way that I view that. First of all, just to kind of back up, Microsoft built the technology that is delivered in Excel and known as Power Query, but that same technology is also delivered elsewhere in Power BI Desktop, which is a standalone desktop application that runs outside of Excel. Microsoft also developed this technology that inside of Excel is known as Power Pivot, or the data model. They also deliver that inside of the standalone desktop app called Power BI. So the question is, since that same technology is in two different places, like, which one should I use? And which one is better than the other? So kind of the way that I think about it is this. Excel can do so many different kinds of things that I can go to Excel and learn Power Query, learn Power Pivot, and use it in all of my existing workbooks or in a variety of different workflows. However, if the workflow is strictly to take some external data, clean it up, and then report on it using a visual, then Power BI makes a lot of sense for that specific workflow. Excel can do other things besides that workflow, but when I'm just getting external data, cleaning it up, maybe defining some relationships and some measures, preparing some visuals, charts, and graphs, Power BI is great because there's more advanced options in terms of the visuals, how you can distribute those to the end users, which is really cool. In fact, you can use a mobile app to deliver your reports and your visuals to other users through the web. And so that whole report distribution piece of the puzzle is a lot more robust and more capable in Power BI. So anyway, that's kind of the way I view those two different products. Hopefully that's helpful. What do you think?
Yes. We have comments here. John Michaludis, nice one, Jeff. Farah Shaikh, hi, amigo. Amigo is friend. And we have more questions. This one here always relating Power BI about the data model. What do you prefer? Where do you prefer the data model, Excel or Power BI?
Yeah, so the stuff that I work on is a lot of Excel stuff. So I usually create it in Excel. But depending on what you're reporting on and who your end users are, do they need interactivity? Do they need some cross filters? Are they on your network? Are they outside of your network? Do they want to get to a phone? Then you'd go with Power BI instead. So for me personally, though, I live in an Excel world, so that's where I spend most of my time.
Yeah, I think for my perspective, I think using the data model in Power BI is not any surprise. If they are in Power BI, they will see the data models. But when we show the data model possibilities to Excel users, it's that moment that the mind blows, boom, because they always used to, in the past, to make all the pivot tables, and then they start loading lots of data, tons of data, and then they say it has more than 1 million rows. How can I fit this into Excel? And then we say, do you know the data model? And they say, what data model? And then you start showing the possibilities. Oh, you have Power Pivot. And then I like the moment that they start using data model in Excel. I think this is more magic than in Power BI, because in Power BI is the natural way, but in Power BI, in Excel, I see this as a very special moment. Yes, Faris is complementing here. They will get surprised. Yes, exactly. Yes. Cool, very cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Good to see. And Christian is complimenting that he used in Excel, then if needed, import in Power BI. Yes.
Yeah.
It's the natural way. Yes.
Yeah, and that's
Cool.
nice to expand on that, because if you're comfortable in Excel, you can kind of rapid prototype your ideas and you're very comfortable in that environment. And then once you kind of have everything sorted out, figured out, you can always go into Power BI, open up, import that, and then just redo the visual. So yeah, that's a great comment.
Cool, very cool. Yes, Excel is a great tool to make a prototype, and then maybe use Power BI or even Power Automate later, depending on the thing that we want to automate. Is it an automation or a report? Microsoft provides another tools in the top, so we don't have to be stuck on Excel forever, but Excel is a good way to start prototyping. This is excellent. We have more comments in the end. Now that they see that it's almost in the end, they are running to make the questions. Very good. Power BI will make the things work faster. I hope Microsoft Teams can get the same performance on Excel. Yes. Maybe.
Absolutely.
Nadia is making a question now. What software should prefer as a CPA or an accountant? For both, you mean between Excel and Power BI? I think it is, right? I think this is related to the previous questions. She will say, we have always a small delay, so we will have some questions before she makes this. Faraz is answering.
It's the only software you need, right? I agree, man.
Yes. Cool. Yeah, Excel is more democratic. I like the way that yes, she's confirming. Yes, between Excel or Power BI.
Yeah, I feel like it just depends on who's getting those reports and who are you delivering it to, and can Power BI do the whole flow for you, or is there other stuff we need to calculate along the way? If I'm calculating journal entries, that's Excel. You know, if I'm taking in some CSV files from some clients and delivering some reports or analysis, you know, Power BI may be preferred. So I think it really just kind of depends. I would keep both options open, but here's the really good news. Whether you learn Power Query in Excel or over in Power BI, or whether you learn the data model and relationships and measures in one or the other, those skills transfer back and forth very easily. Really, for me personally, the biggest kind of leap is the visuals. And so other than that, though, those skills cross-transfer beautifully. So once you're comfortable in one, it's pretty easy to move to the other.
Cool, very cool. Yes, we have more comments. Farais is complementing. You can use Power BI if your data is organized. Absolutely right, as said by Jeff. Yes, cool. It depends on the approach. It depends of the role that the person is playing in the company. It depends of the stage of the development. If the process is one thing, from my perspective, is that if your process is not solid, you will rewrite the models if you don't have a very solid process. So you will have to rework and again and again and again, up to a stage when people start telling, okay, now I am comfortable with this. So I think maybe Excel will be more flexible to make the changes. And then if you have a very solid process, Power BI maybe would be the choice to start using instead of redoing the things, maybe. So we have lots of variables, and it's cool that we can choose, because in the past we didn't have so many tools.
Yes,
It's very good that today we have PowerPoint, but we have also the Sway, and we have Teams. Maybe we prefer to make something sending through Teams instead of sending through Outlook. So options, having options is always very, very good. So we reached the 1 hour of video. Usually we stop here. We got some minutes of bonus. I would like to have well, we have more comments now. This is becoming very interactive in the end. So they are comparing the Excel and the possibilities with Power BI. Very cool, very cool. Before we end, usually we leave the guest, the interviewee, with the final words, and I would like to keep this tradition here, if possible. If you can give to the audience some advice, it will be very cool. It's okay?
Sure. Yeah, I'll give advice. So here's my best advice. Okay, this is my most inspirational advice that I can give. It's my best advice that I can give, and it's this: be lazy. Okay, now here's what I mean by that. Be lazy. If you are lazy, then what you're going to try to get to do is you're going to try to get Excel to do your work for you, right? Like, so that you don't have to do it yourself. And that's where we want to be. We want to be thinking about, how do I get Excel to do this? How do I delegate this manual step to Excel? How do I automate this task? How do I reduce the amount of manual steps that I have to update these workbooks every day, week, month, quarter, year? And when you put on a mindset of, I am lazy, I don't want to do this, then you will figure out some creative ways to get Excel to do that work for you. And that's where you want to be. So go and be lazy.
Go. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm writing down here. Make sure everyone subscribe to Excel Universe and activate the bell to receive the notifications of the new videos, and also subscribe to Excel Turbo. Thank you very much, Jeff, for coming, for accepting the invitation, and for this very pleasant conversation. Great to see you today. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.